After 4 gruelling years of one of humanity's bloodiest conflicts, the First World War finally came to an end on the 11th of November 1918, and in the harsh crucible of modern war, 4 once formidable monarchies crumbled. Out of the 6 major combatants that led the Entente coalition, and the 4 that led the coalition of the Central Powers, 8 entered the war as monarchies, but only half of those would survive the conflict. Here are the emperors and kings of World War I, and this is Crown Undone. Born in 1830 and made emperor at just 18, Franz Joseph ascended the throne amid Europe's 1848 revolution, after his uncle abdicated and his father renounced his claim to the throne. Franz Joseph married the Bavarian princess and his first cousin, Elizabeth or Sisi, in 1854, and the pair gave birth to 4 children, but only 3, Gisela, Rudolph and Marie Valerie, survived until adulthood. Although Austria had experienced a brief period of supremacy among the German states once the Holy Roman Empire collapsed at the beginning of the 19th century, the country was eventually expelled from the German Confederation after its loss in the Austro-Prussian War in 1866. And thus the so-called German question was settled. German-speaking peoples would not be united under the House of Habsburg. Just a year later, emboldened by a burgeoning nationalist movement, Hungary was granted a titular role in the newly dubbed Austro-Hungarian Empire, which formally established a dual monarchy, military and diplomatic union between the 2 independent states. These were humbling reality checks for the royal family that had proclaimed in the 15th century, quote, "Let others wage war, but you, happy Austria, marry." This time there was no bride that could save Austria. After the Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867, Franz Joseph's reign was marred by personal tragedy. His brother, Maximilian I of Mexico, had been executed by Mexican nationalists that same year, and in 1889, Franz Joseph's only son and the 30-year-old heir to the imperial throne, Crown Prince Rudolf, shot himself and his mistress, Baroness Mary Vetsera, at his hunting lodge in Mayerling, southwest of Vienna. Later, in 1889, Rudolf's distraught mother and Franz Joseph's wife, Empress Sisi, was assassinated in Switzerland by the Italian anarchist Luigi Lucchini. In 1896, Franz Joseph's other younger brother, Archduke Karl Ludwig, died of typhoid after a pilgrimage to Palestine, which left Karl Ludwig's eldest son, Franz Ferdinand, as heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. When the Congress of Berlin permitted Austria-Hungary to occupy the present-day territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which remained nominally a part of the Ottoman Empire back in 1878, the stage was set for international crisis. Decades later, as the Ottoman Empire was being torn apart by the Young Turk Revolution in 1908, Austria-Hungary exploited the chaos by formally annexing the occupied Bosnian territory. The decision to annex also arose out of a fear that the revolution could spread among the Bosnian Muslims, who, alongside the Serbian National Organization, advocated for the Bosnian acceptance of the Ottoman Empire's restored constitution. Despite these staunch opponents, the now compensated Ottomans recognized Austrian ownership in February 1909. Russia recognized the annexation of Bosnia in March, and soon Serbia and Montenegro followed suit. It was a disaster for the Serbians and the Bosnian Muslims, whose sultan had just been replaced with a Christian Kaiser. Serbia's military success in the 2 Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913, and its acquisition of Macedonia and Kosovo from the Ottomans emboldened Serbian nationalists to take action. A coalition of the 4 Balkan states, Serbia, Greece, Montenegro and Bulgaria, had fought and defeated the Ottoman Empire in 1912, and in 1913, Bulgaria, dissatisfied by the division of territory that had been gained in the First Balkan War, launched an attack against the other members of the Balkan League, but Bulgaria was soon defeated. The terrorist group that pined for the establishment of a Greater Serbia, the Black Hand, found inspiration in the conflict that had fought off the yoke of Ottoman imperial rule, and couldn't help but wish the same for the Habsburgs. In 1913, the 84-year-old Franz Joseph ordered his heir, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, to attend a military maneuver in Bosnia in June the next year. Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie, whose morganatic marriage Franz Joseph had only consented to under the condition that their children would never ascend the Habsburg throne, were to attend the maneuver, visit Sarajevo and then open a museum in the Bosnian capital, which they never arrived at. On the 28th of June 1914, at nearly 11 a.m, Franz Ferdinand and Sophie were shot at point-blank range by Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb and member of Young Bosnia, one of the groups armed and organised by the Black Hand. When Franz Joseph heard of the assassination at his summer residence, the Kaiser Villa, he briefly interrupted his holiday and returned to Vienna to deal with the fallout. Most of the decision-making was assigned to the Austrian Foreign Minister Count Leopold Berchtold, who was determined to deal Serbia a fatal blow. Having secured carte blanche support from Germany, Franz Joseph was presented with the 10-point ultimatum that would be delivered to Belgrade on the 23rd of July. The ultimatum included demands that Serbia would take full responsibility for Franz Ferdinand's assassination, remove all officials and publications that promoted anti-Habsburg sentiment, and allow Austrian police to monitor the country and investigate the assassination plot. Serbia was given 48 hours to respond. The Serbian king, Peter I, agreed to 9 out of the 10 points, taking issue only with the demand that Austrian police operate across Serbia, which he believed threatened the country's independence. The Austro-Hungarian Empire halted communication with Serbia immediately and on the 28th of July 1914 declared war. Unstinting German support was predicated on the assumption that Austria-Hungary was prepared to initiate an instant attack against Serbia, and the rapid war would leave the rest of Europe with no other choice but to comply and accept. Germany was certain that Russia was nowhere near militarily prepared to launch a protracted war, but also assumed that monarchical solidarity would transcend Russian support for the Slavs, especially ones that had just killed a Habsburg. But once Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Russian support brought its ally France into the conflict as well. Germany declared war on Russia on the 1st of August and then on France 2 days later. Germany's violation of Belgian neutrality in an attempt to cut through to France provoked Britain's own declaration of war. In a matter of days, the conflict that Austria-Hungary had anticipated to be short and isolated turned into a brutal 4-year-long war that turned Europe upside down. Franz Joseph died of pneumonia at age 86 on the 21st of November 1916, halfway through an deadly conflict triggered by an impossible ultimatum that he himself signed off on. Lying in the coffin next to the corpse of Franz Joseph were the tattered remains of the Habsburg Empire, which would be formally dissolved in late 1918, when the very last Austro-Hungarian emperor, Charles I, renounced his once glorious throne. That was the life of Franz Joseph, and this was Crown Undone.